actually, I want to go back. I want to talk about what Finian was saying about the double letter grade, the two-dimensional idea where it's like you have an AA where one corresponds to how you do well in this thing, one corresponds to how you do well in this thing.
And it doesn't have to be 2. It could be like
Yeah,
4
multi-dimensional
or something.
n-dimensional
Yeah.
grade representation. That's great. However, grades are good because they're so quantifiable.
Yeah, exactly.
As soon as you bring in any other aspect that has any qualitative judgment going on, it just doesn't really work yet.
Doesn't work
like
as well.
teachers have bias, they are subjective. So when you're talking about like on a larger scale, what works is the quantifiable, measurable things.
Well, my idea with that was to have a way to both represent the like grade, like hard number,
Okay.
along with the fuller picture of the student,
Yeah.
rather than just distilling the entire student down to a singular grade.
So maybe you have like subdivisions, like you have an overall grade, then you have subdivisions of how well you do in like 4 different aspects of the course.
Yeah, which is like why I did like AA. Like over the entirety of like a year, you can take this student got like maybe they got a B plus in the first column. So that's their average. And then but they were a really good person. Everyone thought that
Well, they were a really good person, so I mean,
but like that's what the second column's for. It's the
yes, but how do you judge that?
Well, Jake was like
You
such a
have to-
dick in class, so like he definitely gets an F in that second column.
but I
but-
mean, how can you do that? Like,
But
Yeah, it's
the whole point is not like, okay, I shouldn't have used good person as the qualifier. I should have.
It's generic.
It's like a how well do they understand the material, and the teachers should know how well a student understands.
they totally should. I just don't. I think
Yeah,
that in
and-
practice, they, especially when you get into larger classrooms, I don't think they really have a good grasp. And even if they do, you still have
And,
the bias.
Like, yeah, but over a longer period, bias filters out.
But like, okay, I think I'm an abnormal student. I don't really
Yeah.
have relationships with most of my professors. Do you
wonder
guys? No, that's why I'm saying that's
Okay.
But that's
that-
also a problem. Like, if you don't
But that's
have this
partly
aspect
partly
of
because okay, last year I tried to do the normal
the
student
normal
thing.
the normal.
And I was just like, okay, I'm most of the time going to classes in lecture halls. I mean, I just think I don't learn well in lecture halls. That's just me personally. So if
Well,
I'm in a lecture hall,
obviously it's not everyone.
I'm almost always ahead or behind of where the professors is at.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I'm where they are, then their pace just is usually just not something that works for me as well. I don't know. I just don't like it as much. So I think part of that also is when you have these lecture halls, yeah, it's just like I don't know. I feel like you can't really have a relationship in a lecture hall.
But that's like the whole point of having, like,
So the TA doesn't maybe then? Like you
No,
have
like,
a better
if
relationship with your TA.
they have an extra like assignment where you have to go and talk to them. Like, I had a teacher in high school. It was required within the first 2 weeks of school. You had to like meet him for lunch or like before school.
That's crazy.
Or
That's insane.
like, but what you would do is
had to go
you
over
would
to his
meet him-
house, sit up dinner. I
No,
don't know.
you would go to his classroom, say, "Hey, I'm here for my like check-in," and he'd be like, "All right, let's go walk." And you would talk with him for like 10, 15 minutes about you, and he was always interested in everything that I always like talked to him about. And we had like longer periods, and in that period, in the middle, he would say, "All right, this." The block period's too long. We're going to go take a 10-minute break, pair up with someone that you haven't paired up with before, and you're going to be talking with them. Like, he was a fantastic teacher because he fostered a personal relationship with all of his students and in between them. So you didn't feel worried in class about being like, I don't really understand that. Can you, like, explain it a little bit more? Rather than having, like, a cold outlook on, like, oh, I need to know that this equation equals this and all of this. Like calculus, it was calculus, and calculus for a lot of people was very daunting, but he made it a very fun experience.
That's
Interesting.
great.
Is that
Is that
scalable?
transferable? Yeah. Is that
Yeah.
scalable? Is that transferable? I don't know.
I mean,
think-
yeah.
I
think-
think it totally is.
I think a problem with trying to one, put a grade on each of these specific things, and two, to try and do these things where people can be very collaborative in classes. With the grades itself, you have this issue of, like you said, everybody's a completely different learner
Yeah.
coming from different mindsets, different backgrounds.
And it shouldn't
So-
be like this person good or bad? It should be like, is this person putting in the effort?
It's and not so much as to that either, just so much as to how do you grade something that is inherently completely different with every person. It's you can't say, oh, this is a skill, and this skill you get an A, because this skill shows up differently in other people. No matter how general you make that skill, it's going to show up differently in different people. And I think that's a big issue with even current grading, is how do you define what a 100% means? I think that's the big issue with just grading in general, even if we're defining it in
You
multiple
can't put it on a
categories.
number line.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like one thing we've tried to do over the years, and I think we're getting better about this, is just trying to standardize people as much as possible when they're younger. Like, get rid of any deviations in learning or stuff. Like, for example, I'm a lefty. In the old days, maybe they would have been like, no, you're a righty, actually, because it's just easier to have
Yeah.
everyone write with the right hand. But that kind of stuff, like, I think, they're just trying to standardize people from a young age that they could all learn together. But I feel like that probably doesn't work, because we don't do that as much anymore, and that doesn't sound like the best way to go about things.
I think the big issue with that is not you can definitely learn. The big issue with that is, how do you grow then? So
Yeah,
how
you're
do
not. You lose a little bit of yourself, I feel like,
Yeah.
in that.
and your world becomes an echo
individuality.
chamber.
Yeah.
You're all saying the same things,
That's-
preaching the same facts. There's no new insights. Some huge thing
huge.
that something I love about what a lot of people are doing recently, and what we're cutting back on recently, sadly, is with like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is you're getting all these different cultures, and that it allows you to kind of grow from what you knew and grow into something that's broader than what you even thought, the unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
So you think?
Well,
Are you saying that like the effort to? Are you saying that like the effort to like quantify everyone as a number is inherently detrimental to the progression of humanity?
Yes.
Wonderful.
I think something that we need to realize about grades is, I think you can quantify people into a number, so far as you don't take that number as that person individually. And what we see is, when we quantify people as a number, what tends to happen is, over time, we lose sight of what that number means, and that number is just that person. You are an A student. We've heard this. You're an A or a B student. What does that mean? And even if you add these categories, you're an AB student, you're an AA student.
Yeah.
What does that mean? An A student may work amazing at one company, and not great at another, and a C student may work even better at one company than an A student, just because of how it works. The complexity of who they are.
And like the whole thing with the explosion of the worldwide communication system is these like universities get a flood of students, and they don't have a right way to properly make sure that, oh, this A student is different from this A student. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, you can give them like all the grades that you want, all the information that they want, but at the end of the day, it's still a reduction of who you are. And there's no way for them to have a personalized interview with everyone that they're trying to admit, to make sure that like what they're doing is beneficial for all of them.
Yeah.
And they're admitting the right people.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And something that I love that these conversations always go to is the fact of grades. Is we do put these people as in terms of A's and B's and 100% and whatever percents, and it always comes down to this when we're talking about education, when we're talking about learning, when we're talking about people going through past their education system. It always comes down to this aspect of grades and how do we grade better? How do we something that I personally hate as just as a student and as a person is this idea that everybody comes down to a grade, and I hate the mindset that we have to talk about that we have to say how does grading work? How do we better grading when inherently there's just no way to do it. There's just no way.
Yeah.
You everybody's so complex. You just can't quantify that even as a simple sentence. You just can't. You just can't.
Well, I'm curious. What are your ideas of an alternative? Like, do you have specifics on that? I guess the reason we do grading is it's sorting people. So you're trying to figure out, like, high school. You're trying to figure out which people should go to which schools and which people from which schools should go to which jobs. Like, can you think of a better way to do that?
No, it's
Yeah,
my short
okay, yeah,
answer
it's-
is
yeah,
no.
it's just no, yeah.
There's maybe a very pessimistic approach to it, but I really don't think there is a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll always come up with like slightly better ways, but I think the difference is the fact that we have to make this happen. We have to bring people down to some
Yeah.
sort of grade, whether that be a number, whatever it is. I think it's a problem with our culture, the fact that we have to do this. And I think if we are able to actually bring this out and say, hey, people are not just their grades. I think it allows us to be able to, one, educate better, and two, for people who are educated and well educated to be able to move on and do whatever it means to be successful for them.
Yeah, I think like you said, there's no perfect way to boil somebody down into a number. Like, but at the same time, quantified metrics are useful for many things. Like you need, or even if it's not like a numeric thing, but something some attribute of somebody that can be used for tons of things is
Like what?
Like in other words, grades are used to admit you into a college for companies to sort of see what you're like. They're used for sorting, like having a representation of somebody that in some way describes how good of a student they are is useful. I just don't think that there's a perfect way to do it, which is why I agree with you.
What I would say to that is I think it's a problem with how we are defining people, where we do feel like we have to have a metric for people, where I would argue you don't.
Okay.
The issue that stems from not having a metric is the fact that you have a lot of people. You have to be able to. A lot of reasons why we put people in a metric is so we can sort, like you said earlier. How can we have 5,000 people and we can only read 500 applications? Let's take the 500 top people and then we'll read those 500. That becomes an issue. Is how do we universalize this? I think there's a different solution. I don't know what that is. If that's
Okay.
what you're
There is a different
hinting at.
solution. Yeah.
I think there is a different solution. I think that's something that's many years down the line, maybe past our lifetimes.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something that we're just going to come up with in an afternoon.
Yeah.
Dang it.
You're playing.
this
You're
close.
playing
There
it
goes my
spoiled.
weekend plan.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Absolutely. Gavin, do you have any final brain dropping knowledge?
Brain
to
Brain
put
droplets.
on?
Any wisdom bombs?
Yeah,
Wisdom
a little
bombs.
wisdom bomb. Like what's like whether it's a call to action to maybe universities or other LMSs or what do you think?
So I would ask. So maybe I would have an ask for students if any students are listening.
Okay.
I would just ask as a very simple question, and I would want them to take it however they take it, is just rethink your education. Whatever that means for you. I think that has helped me learn how to learn so much in my past is rethinking what it means to educate as an individual. How do people educate me? How do I learn? What does that mean? And then has helped me grow as an individual. And I think really inherently what we're trying to do by improving education is improving people's lives. And I think that question has improved my life the most. So that's what I would have to ask.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I almost shed a tear.
was
But
nice.
yes, Gavin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much for
Thank you,
joining
guys.
us. This
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
Thank you.
this was fantastic.
I love this conversation.
a lot of great insights.
That's been your word of the
Yeah.
week.
I know, fantastic. My
Fantastic.
word of the week.
But it has been. It's been genuinely wonderful to talk with you.
Yeah.
You guys too.
Yeah. Thank
and
you so much.
we will be looking out for your website to come
Yes.
up,
Mhm.
for your progresses on your business.
Can you repeat the website again?
Yeah,
Where can
yeah.
we go?
It's edpresent.com, all lowercase,
Present.
edpresent,
All right, now I want all
EDPRESENT.
of the listeners to bookmark that, even if it's
Yeah.
not even up yet. Bookmark
Bookmark
that
it.
page, and I want you to refresh it at least once per day.
Once per day,
It-
daily.
maybe even twice. Maybe
Honestly,
even twice per
I
day.
want the hour that I launch this website. I want people to
Yeah,
flood into.
yeah.
I'm going to see 100,000 people flooding
100,000,
because they're
yes.
constantly
Oh,
constantly
right,
Oh, of
refreshing.
course.